Hi, everybody. Um, I decided I was going to do uh, a difficult chat. I'm always talking about the what ifs, but I'd like to talk about the right now. Um, Now, I was raised old school. Your gender was your gender. But I also lived through the 70s, free love and experimentation, homosexuality. All of this was an open door in the 70s and part of the 80s, early 80s. But by the uh, opposing forces, didn't squash it out, but it did make a lot of people have to go back into hiding about who they were and who they loved. You know, they talk about the hippie movement. Well, I was a part of the hippie movement. I don't know about y'all, but I was born in the 60s. So in the 70s I was hitting, puberty and growing into my own. But I always knew I was female. Never had a question or a doubt about it. Now my sexual preference had nothing to do with whether I was female or male. It had everything to do with what my desires were. And if your desires are more towards a same sex relationship, I think you should be able to do that. I don't think you should face persecution. I think evolution naturally creates species, especially when our species has so many unwanted babies in the world. And I mean so many. Just here in the US alone, adoption agencies are full of children who need parents. And just because you're two men or two women, that should not have anything to do with your accountability as a parent. And adopting children is not easy. I know. I have adopted some kids in over my years, and uh, but most I didn't adopt. They just ended up in my home, needing a safe place, and they were able to find it there. And their sexuality was never a question for these kids. So I don't understand where this comes from. Um, if you're a drag queen, I love my drag queens, don't get me wrong. Your fashion sense, when it comes to the drama, and your is exemplary. There's no question that you have this force of beauty within you. And if it comes out, you happen to be a man and it comes out as a woman, great, great. I don't think that's a bad thing. But you show me one woman who goes to work dressed like you, like a drag queen. They don't. It's inappropriate. Even if they were not a drag queen, a homosexual, no matter what it was, to come in to work dressed like a prostitute or a pageant entry, it's not acceptable. And when you go to work, you should not take that with you. That's your personal life. It doesn't belong in your job. And it sure as hell doesn't belong in my school. There are a lot of children in this world that are confused and they're scared, and you're making it worse. You're confusing them more, and terrifying the more. When with my first husband, now he has homophobia, without a doubt. Always had that. He was, I think, beat into it by other kids and family members because you got to remember we come from a different era. If you were doing things that were unacceptable, it was acceptable to beat you, and you would face reduced charges, if any. This was a different era, not like today. And I see these pedophiles latching on to this movement and trying to alter our children to either keep them children through hormone injections or chemical castration. They say, oh, it's temporary. No, the mental damage is going to be permanent. You can't take that out of the equation, no matter how much you want to make this sound as if it's a safe and legitimate effort. It's not. It's not. A safe, legitimate effort is if you have a different sexual preference. Explore it without influencing children. You want to influence adults to see your way, but you can't, can you? Because if you want to be a fur baby, yes, I do know what they are. No, I've never been one. No, I would never be one. I'm sorry. I have animal instincts, but my desire is for my own species. Sorry. So I'm not into that kind of thing either. But if you want to be a fur baby, be the best fur baby you can be, as long as you never touch an animal that way, because then it's bestiality and it's illegal. And it is a serious crime to harm an innocent animal that way is beyond cruel. So when I see these drag queens standing in daycares reading a child's book to a bunch of children, and the parents are supporting this, I think those parents should lose their children because they have no regard for the well-being, mental well-being of their small children. Want to dress like a woman, dress like a woman, a real woman. I don't know any women who dress like you unless they're in the entertainment industry. Then they make plenty of women or plenty of money. But you're just trying to force acceptance for the way you want to dress in public. And I'm sorry, people are always going to have an issue with that. Like I said, if you want to dress like a woman, show some respect for one by actually dressing like a woman. And don't give me a glare because I can tell that your pushed forward pelvis to try and make it look like you have the arch women have in their back that men do not have. It looks ridiculous. You look like you're pushing your belly out to show how starving you are. It does not look sexy. Your idea of sexy somewhere got confused, and I wonder who messed with you when you were a child to produce you to feel this is acceptable. I I don't get it. Now, being raised during free love and, peace. There was very little peace during all that free love. And there was a lot of abuse. And there was a lot of, and none of these things turned out to be beneficial for those people when they grew up. In fact, most couldn't function. They couldn't go get a job. They could not adapt to society. So the suicide rate went through the roof. Our economy, our country was not prospering. I don't care what the government tells you. We were having gas wars where gas stations had no fuel. And that was a time when gas prices were under 60 cents a gallon compared to what we're paying today. So, in reality, you got to stop pushing this agenda before the backlash that comes at you is going to be explosive. People will only be pushed so far before their acceptance says enough. And that's a warning to you because I see so many videos out there today against this. It's like encouraging an undeveloped mental illness to prosper and grow in the brain of an individual child. A child that's not old enough to choose their sex preference. They're already born with the sex. Now, can men be born in a woman's body and can women be born in a man's body? Yes. Yes, they can. I've known quite a few people. But they have never pushed this traumatic I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the right words to describe what I'm feeling right now because right now I want to take every parent who is allowing their kid to go into school and say, I identify as today I'm a skunk. It sounds that ridiculous to the rest of us too. When you turn around and say, my child identified, no. Who's the parent? The child or you? Who is the parent? The child or you? I would never have subjected my children to the abuse of the woke movement. It's no movement. It's an atrocity that should not be happening. But schools are already implementing male castration for males or chemical castration for males and testosterone injections for females to stop them from going into their menstrual cycles, effectively keeping them small children physically. Who are the most vulnerable people in the US? Women? No. Men? Definitely not. Children are the most vulnerable, most targeted group of people in the United States. And I don't care if your child is black, white, Mexican, Asian, I don't care. You have a right to protect your child from such atrocities as castration ordered by your school for your child to attend. My children, they grew up in a messed up school system. Still had bullies, still had same old problems that we had when I was in school. But they handled it well. They managed and manipulated through it and came out whole people. And when I say whole people, meaning they knew what gender they were, they knew what species they were. And that never crossed their mind as a doubt. But my children won't. They refuse to put their children in public schools. Is that why the government's latching onto this like that? Because the support the government is getting and giving these people is changing the laws so that we can't protect our children anymore. I have no interest in that. I am a protector of my children. I am the guardian of my children. If they're born female, I'm going to raise them that way until they tell me, Mom, I don't, I like girls. What do you mean you like girls? I like girls. Now I have a daughter who has done this. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So, do you have a girlfriend? And she said, yes. And I said, well, is she good to you? She said, yes. And she looked very puzzled that I was not bashing her because that was actually probably what she was expecting. No, evolution, God, whatever. When overpopulations of species begin to overwhelm the ecosystem, nature has its way of slowing down our breeding. And I'm grateful for that. It's natural. As a man and a woman, it's as natural as can be. And the argument over it decades long and it's ridiculous to say that two men can't raise a daughter, to say two women can't raise a son because they're same sex, although their thinking is more of a man woman, woman man, whatever, just their bodies aren't. That's not what their bodies feel comfortable with. And I'm okay with that. But if my child goes to school and says, today I identify as a rock, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to grab that child and I'm going to take them off into a corner and we're going to have a nice, quiet discussion that because I'm loud, everyone will hear about how they identify themselves. Now, if you're a rock, you don't come home to dinner. You do not go eat lunch. Have you ever seen a rock eat? Have you ever seen a rock get dressed? Have you ever seen a rock? I'm sorry. I am going to break down the delusion right there and put a stop to it. Because in school, sex should be the last thing my child should be worried about. They should be worried about math, reading, kind of history. It's not accurate. It's the most inaccurate. Our history, American history, I don't even want to go there, but they've had these problems for generations. And they're so worried about whether a child is identifying as a cat rather than fixing that problem. It's just a diversion and it's working. I would have pulled my children out of school. The first note I got home from this school about the woke movement. I applied for a job, and you know they told me that if I supported the woke movement, I did not qualify for a position. People don't want anything to do with it because it's ridiculous. It's just a diversion while the government rips you off more. You're paying for that education with your tax. Tell you what to do with your child. Most food programs for children these days in schools, the parents can't afford them, and the children are not allowed to bring lunches to school. And it's dictated what they can eat. So now these people they're raising your kids. You might as well just hand them over, honestly. What they will do because you're already going to go along with it, no matter what it is that they're going to do. Okay, today we're going to chemically castrate 20 children in your son's age group, and your son will be one of them. What do you do? Chemical castration is easily done just by consuming something. They don't go snip them off. No, they stop the testosterone from triggering puberty so that your son, well, the high pitched scratchy voice these guys gonna keep until he's 19. Come on. Listen, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be. I'm not going to allow my child to take fantasy and say it's reality. If I as a human being and you're going to behave appropriately, meaning you're not going to bully, you're going to communicate with the other kids so that you're not feeling overwhelmed and taken over by school policy. It's not a law, it's a policy. Too many policies are being treated as laws today, and that's wrong. Now, if you want to allow your child to identify as an animal, a dog, I expect your children to be in dog training classes by morning, fully signed up, paid for, so that when your children do go into a public school with other children, they know how to sit and respond properly. You want to identify as another species, then you have to go to of the other species. Not this, no, I don't need education because today I'm a bear. Today you're acting like an idiot. You're not a bear, you're a human being. And you're not going to of who they are as they're growing up by saying, oh, you can be another species. No, you can't. And bestiality is against the law. So if you have an adult who identifies as a dog and you as a human identify as a human, sleep with that person, is that bestiality now? Is it? Is that where it's got to go to prove the point that this cannot go on? Your gender is your right. You were born with it. Now, if you're not happy with your body appearance, stop hanging out with people who shame you. Take a nice photo of yourself and look at it and go, wow, I am not a beautiful woman. I'm old, but I'm smart. And the dumbing down of our children by saying fantasy is reality. That's the future you're going to allow your child frog to have. Are they going to learn how to live in a pond? Because there ain't no princess reality and turn them back into a human, it's not real. Our children are exposed to enough fantasy, thanks to Disney, thanks to social media and television. They have enough questions as they're growing up about their own sexual identity. And if you think that as a young woman, I didn't explore all the options, you'd be mistaken. And I'm talking human, okay? Some people go crazy off the deep end trying to make this more about civil. It's not about civil rights. If a slave had gone up to his slave master, master, I identify as a possum. What do you think his slave owner would have done? Okay, you're a possum. So your dinner on the table tonight? When you take a child and you tell them that the fantasy they see before them is reality and they can be that, you are a contributor to the harm and damage done to the mentality of that child. Now, if you're like, the boomers uh, generation, mine, your parents, all they cared about was that you survived. That was the one thing that kept them from looking bad as parents, other than throwing a tantrum in the grocery store when you're a kid. Then your mama whooped your butt right there. There was no, but mom, I want to roll around on the floor because I identify as a snake. Well, you're not leaving your skin out in this floor, and I'm not paying for your food. If you're a snake, you get out there on your belly and you crawl around and you find the bugs and the lizards and the things snakes eat. Bring them back to reality. It's the only thing that's going to save your children. And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about this. They're scared of this movement. I'm not. It's a fad. You know, young girls, when they came out with low rise bell bottoms, oh, we thought they were the sexiest thing in the world. But only on models did it look sexy. In reality, a 12-year-old girl with her little belly bubble hanging over that button does not look as curvy as it does on the models. And if that child is built with a different body form, you can't change that. I know. I was one of those short girls that didn't have the long torso. So I always had the little tummy bulge. And I could get so skinny and still have that thing. And I did. I got down to like 98 pounds when I was 17. And not only did I look half dead, but that little pudge was still there, never went away. It's because that's how my body is shaped. I tried wearing the low rise. All I did was show my butt crack and my little budge. And it was embarrassing. So my mother went out and she bought me chick jeans. They came up all the way over the hip, all the way around to the waistline. When I wore those, I had great figure because everything was kind of tucked in place. Looked nice. So don't go out and buy your kid a costume to allow them to be a fuck buddy for a Furby, because that's what you're setting your children up to. And if these monsters, and I call them monsters because they are preying on children, The only monsters I've ever known preyed on children. I can't accept that. And anybody who does is responsible for the harm that they cause innocent children. If you want to go stand up in a room full of adults and you're an adult and you say, I identify as an eagle, well, get your ass up in the air. Let me see you be an eagle. That's going to be the response. You're not genetically designed to fly. So climb up that tree, jump off, and let's get it over with because you're going to be dead when you hit the ground. And you know it. You know you can't go up and fly or do anything an eagle does, but you're going to claim its identity. That's like the men who, I'm a woman because they dress like a drag queen. I don't know women who dress like drag queens. Maybe on Halloween. Don't find it alluring. They don't think it's sexy. Now, a homosexual man looking at that drag queen up on the stage, strutting her stuff, he's all down. Appropriately so. The kind of human he is desiring. If I'm going out on a date, I will dress to impress. If I'm going to a bar, I'm dressing to have fun because I rarely ever went to a bar to pick up someone. And I say rarely, I'm human. And there were times I was single. When I went to bars, it was about meeting people. Well, I met men and women who were all three genders. I only see it as two, heterosexual and homosexual. This other, but in the back of your head, and your hair covers it, and you can never see anything. It's just not useful. But a man and a man who love each other and want to raise a family, you got my respect. It takes courage because you're going to be dealing with a being that has very much free will. And they have it crawling stages, basically where I saw it hit for my kids. But for others, it might be very different. Um, whether you believe in the movement or not, protect your children from it. Because your children are the most vulnerable right now. And our government sees a means to latch onto them and do bad things to them. And if you think that our government would never do that, yeah, our government would never have anything to do with 9/11 either. But it doesn't change the fact that they did. So if you care about your children, I cared about mine, and had this movement come around during my children's puberty, my children, I would have had a hard time stopping them from mocking the kids that were, yeah. And, you know, you can't always explain away other people's behavior. You can't. No matter what you want to do, what you want to say, you can't But you can only pray that their influence does not touch your children. It's like common sense. You live in the city, you have a youthful child, and I say youthful, between, say, 10 and 15, and games. Are you going to let your kids join those games? Or are you going to do everything in your power to protect your children from them and to keep them out? Well, this is another game, except this one is based on sheer fantasy. It has no reality in it at all. I don't know what else I can say to make you think twice before putting your children in a school that supports the woke agenda. If you are against the woke movement and you don't want that influence forced down your children's throat before they're even able to decide their sexual preference, do you deserve your children? Because you might as well go stand them out in traffic and just pray a car don't hit them. It's the same thing. Now, I'm all about child protection. I was the kind of mother that you hit my child, you better expect that I'm going to hit you back. Now, if you're a child and you hit my kid, I'm going to yell at you. And I'm going to your parents with it. And together, we'll come to a resolve where this doesn't happen again. But with this movement, there are no parents or guardians watching over. It's just a bunch of pedophiles who think they have a right to disillusion your children to make them easier victims. These grown men dressed like drag queens going into public park bathrooms. Why are you dressed that way in a park? Really? What's your motive? Well, I'm a woke person. No, you're a disillusioned person. And if you think I'm going to allow you anywhere of my child in a private moment of going to the bathroom, I'm going to drag your queen ass out, pull your wigs off, show your wang, and tell you to get on moving down. Because you don't belong in a public bathroom where children go. And if you're a woman dressed like a man and you go into a men's bathroom that way, I have seen that one. But you don't see it much on the media. Oh, no, no, no. But they have the same agenda. So watch out for your sons if you think they aren't being exposed to this garbage. You know, some man, grown man, dressed like a woman, walking up to a young boy in the bathroom. Oh, you've got so much to learn, honey. Yeah. And they want to teach them. These are your children. These are not property. These are not AI. These are real human beings. You are 100%, even by law, responsible for it. Now, they're going to change our laws. Then we got to fight to change it back. And we do that by yanking our kids out of every woke school in the US. Get your kids out of those schools. They're not getting their education. The mentality that comes with puberty allows the growth of intelligence. Suppressing it suppresses the intelligence. And in some boys, it causes adverse side effects, breast growth. So your daughter might not be able to grow breasts because she's being fed testosterone, but your son being chemically castrated and then given female hormones to keep him from, yeah. You think we have some messed up people now. Wait till those kids are grown. Think about what those kids are going to do to their children. Will their children become sexual idols to them? Sure seems that way. Take your children back. Stomp this woke movement out. It is evil. And I'm not talking Bible either. Hell no. I know evil when I see it. And I gotta tell you, I've been to a drag queen competition, a show. I went with a friend of mine who was in the competition. And he did not make a pretty woman, not even a pretty Amazonian woman, but he dressing so flamboyant. He said, "I'm dressed like a woman. I don't know any women dressed like this." His name was Patrick, and he went by Patty or Patricia. I used to shave his back so he could wear his backless gowns. So you ain't gonna tell me that I gotta accept this. There is an appropriate place for it. It's not in my children's schools. It's not in their nurseries. It's not in their fantasies. Now, if they develop these fantasies as they mature and understand how to accept themselves with these fantasies. But I want you to know, my friend Patrick did become Patricia. He went through the surgeries. He lost his kids, lost his wife. His entire family rejected him. And after only 2 years of living as a full-fledged woman, he committed suicide because nobody accepted him as a woman. This was a man that was about 6'9". Okay, he was a big man. He did not have the physique of an athlete. More like a beer, beer belly dad kind of thing. Now, before his surgeries, his family accepted him. His flamboyancy, his entire sex. His wife told him, I'm not into girls. I'm into men. And I was into you, but not anymore because you're a woman. To me, it was a serious tragedy when he took his life. I talked to him not long before he did. And the suffering he was going through, he would have gave anything to be able to go back to being like he was before he went through full transition. He went through the counseling and the therapy, and he lived as a woman for a year before the transition. I mean, full garb. He started hormones, and he was convinced in his mind that his fantasy, once made into a reality, would be all that he ever imagined it could be. And it wasn't. Because a fantasy is a fantasy. And once you remove the fantasy, all that's left is the real. So hang on to your fantasies, goals, or whatever. Do your thing. Mommy, puppy, do your thing. But don't include your children. And don't allow others to children. Because going to school today is like taking your children into an orgy of adults. Because that's what they're being set up for. And if you think that it's not going to have any mind altering effects on them, suppressing their natural hormones, before they know what sex they even prefer, are you serious? My first kissing experiences when I was 12, 13 years old were with girls. I didn't learn to kiss from boys. I learned to kiss from my best friends. Um, as far as sexual stuff, that happened later, but it wasn't like I had chose a gender specifically. That's the one that's gonna be my preference. And I'm gonna stick with that the rest of my life. I never had that. I was always attracted to men, still attracted to men. And that's another thing about being a woman. You're not attracted to a homosexual man. In most cases, it's because their femininity gets in the way. But you are drawn to. At least that was how it was for me. But you're not even going to give these children a chance to decide for themselves. You're really going to allow the school to take that right away from them and away from you? I don't know how to say this, but I guess it's Gen X or millennials, I think, whichever group is most recent. I think my children are millennials. These are a totally different breed of parent. Now, my daughter was always angry with me about the strictness of my rules, even though I didn't consider myself a strict parent. My kids did. I restricted their freedom to come and go at whim and expected them to allow me to know where they are and what they're doing, who they're doing it with. Those are responsible parent children interactions. But this is being taken away from us. I am so afraid of one of my grandchildren ending up in a public school. Not because of the criteria being hard. They've screwed that up so bad, it's not even worth messing with. You're almost better off just going back to the basics, teaching your children how to do the basics of math and letting them escalate their knowledge of mathematics from there. Because the way they're teaching it now is ridiculous. They say it's just science. No, it's not. I have seen so many equations over my life, and I never saw any equations done like the mathematics are done today. This is now 2 plus 2 equals 5 generation. And they're taught this is accurate, and we know it's not. You can, wait a minute, that's 4 fingers. How are they come up? Where's the 5th one? Yet, the answer is 5. So, no, this is not a real education system anymore. And they have overstepped the boundaries so far. There's 2 choices: yank your kids out of school completely and doom them to no education if you're not willing to educate them, or let them become a forced product of the woke movement because they have no say so. The kids are speaking up. I don't know how many school meetings I've watched on YouTube where these kids are saying, "Why are you doing this to us? You're supposed to be our protectors, our guardians, and our knowledge givers, and you're doing nothing but abusing us. Why? Why?" And the kids are asking, but it's not enough to stop this from happening because not enough parents are standing up. What kind of parent are you? The kind who claims you're a good parent, but sits there in front of their phone all day? Or are you the kind of parent that's interacting with your kids and their lives? The lives you gave them. You decided you should give life to them, but you're disputing your responsibility for them by saying this is acceptable. You're saying, well, that's what they want. If my child wanted to eat rat poison, I would intervene. Woke movement, rat poison, same thing. Intervene before the damage goes too far. The next generations deserve a better chance than a boomer like me or a Gen Xer ever had. It wasn't about spoiling when we gave them things, teaching them that they can get these things with certain behaviors, certain work, you know, and that's gone. The grandchildren I have today, I am very blessed. Good morals, and they know that they're human beings, and that's how they identify. They just want something new to divide us on so that we can continue to bicker some more, blah, 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 and nothing gets fixed. Same old, same old. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty tired of it. Okay, guys, I've been on here almost an hour. This is a very touchy subject for me, and I look forward to your comments. Please do comment, and I'm sure there's going to be some haters about my view on this subject, so it's expected. But keep in mind, YouTube does have policy that they see as law, and if you don't like your account, go to the ugly side of it, do your thing. But if you like your account and you really want to communicate your side of it, I'd love to hear it. I would love to hear a rational, logical conversation on the woke movement because it's been twisted up and manipulated, and our governments are acting like starving animals that have cost a dead deer on the side of the road and they're scavenging and grabbing what they can from it. But this, what they're grabbing is our kids. I hope you have a strong voice, because the more people that speak out against this atrocity, the more of a chance that we have for our children. And I ain't even bringing the Bible into it, because I don't need God to tell me this is a farce. I don't need God to tell me this is bad. All I have to do is watch television, social media, so many other apps to see the damage this is already done. So if you're an advocate for the woke movement, I feel sorry. Because when you jump on that bandwagon, most of the time that bandwagon is just playing music and it doesn't really get you anywhere. So love your kids more than yourself. That's my message. Because if you love your kids more than yourself, you'll never allow this woke movement anywhere near your children. Fight back. That's what we Americans do. And there are ways to fight back and never raise a hand to another person. Of course, there's going to be some foolish idiot that will, but it doesn't have to be. On both sides, I'm sorry. Those who want their right to claim to be another species, and those who don't think you should have that right. Human inalienable rights are for humans. And if you're not human, you don't have those rights. And if you really want to identify as an animal, then go live this one first to see if that's what you really want. Because when you got to shit in your yard instead of on your comfy toilet, with toilet paper to clean your ass, you're not going to be too happy. When you're eating doggy kibble because your parents are not giving you human food anymore, and your malnourishment begins and you're hungry all the time, just like our poor animals. My dogs don't eat that crap, not without some real food mixed in with it. So, what's your values when it comes to your kids? The newest fad, which is the woke movement, or reality? Fads, as any kid from the boomer generation will tell you, some can be longer lasting than others, but they always fade into the past. And for many of them, that's a good thing. All right, folks, I've said my piece. My whole body's tired of thinking of this. Like I said, it's a very touchy subject. I never had to face this kind of threat when my kids were in school. Biggest thing I had to deal with were bullies. I had to protect my kids from bullies. But other than that, it really saddens me. In one generation, our education system is almost completely dismantled. it's going to leave us all in a bad way if we don't teach our kids. And if you think your responsibility is, well, I provide a roof and I provide the food on the table and the clothes that they wear, what else are you providing? You're a parent. You're the supplier of knowledge before they hit school. And if you don't know what knowledge they're getting in school, how can you teach them that they learned something wrong or bad if you're not a part of their lives? How can you? My husband worked all the time. I raised kids. But there had to be somebody to do it. I couldn't abandon my children. I gave them life. And I tried to teach them to be good people. And I didn't even know how to be a good person myself. I had never been taught that, other than manners and how to behave properly in public. That is my education. I didn't have a mom I could go turn and talk to. I didn't have a dad I could go turn and talk to. It just wasn't available. My parents, when they were done working, they were done with everything. That included, don't be that parent. I needed my parents to be good guides for me, and they weren't. They left me to figure it out for myself. And in this world, that's dangerous. Far more dangerous than it was during my time. Any child today is 100 times more vulnerable because of the woke movement than our children ever were in the past. Listen, pedophiles are trying to find any means to get access legally to our children. And this is just another one of those ploys. Now, if you want to sell your child, if you're that kind of parent, you better get a goddamn good price, because that child's life is going to be hell until they die at a young age, probably murdered. So, be a parent, or step off the fucking game and stop calling yourself one. If you can't be a parent, don't procreate. It's wrong and it's bad. And if you're just popping out babies just to pop them out because you got pregnant, you're an idiot. And you deserve the lowest life there is on the planet. If you think that's okay. All right, guys. Sorry, I know I don't usually touch on them because they make me kind of volatile. But I think I've said enough. And I love y'all. And I really hope that I'm right. That this movement is going to go anywhere. That there are more parents like me who care about their kids than there are parents who just don't give a damn. Have a good one, y'all. Like, comment, share, and please, mostly subscribe. I need less than 200 subscribers, and my channel will be monetized completely, and I will finally be able to support myself. So, thank you for that. You don't know how wonderful that is. And on that good note, I bid you adieu, and I look forward to talking with you again later.